Hey guys, Alex from Children to Watch a Star Wars Show. We interviewed Emily Swallow, aka The Armor from The Mandalorian. This interview has been up on our podcast feed since January, but this is the first time we are debuting the video interview on YouTube. So a few notes. When we did this interview back in January, we had no idea she would be gracious enough to do it on video. So you may notice a treadmill behind me the entire time while I grin like an idiot. We also have our Mandalorian Watch logo in the top left-hand corner because that is before we transition into our new name, Children of the Watch, a Star Wars show, to better cover the upcoming live-action Star Wars TV shows. This is a super fun interview where we talk about Emily's love for Star Wars, her time on the set of The Mandalorian, and some potential Mandalorian Season 3 hints, and if there would be conflict between her and Bo-Katan. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to our videos so you never miss an episode. And without further ado, enjoy the interview. Today, we have with us Emily Swallow, a well-known actress known for her roles as Kim Fisher in The Mentalist and Amara in Supernatural. She also portrays maybe one of the coolest characters in all of Star Wars, The Armor. Emily, we are so happy that you're with us today.
I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, hey, so one thing we like to do kind of to open things up and get to know somebody, a little bit better. We like to ask, so before obviously, becoming the armorer, taking on the role and everything, what was your relationship to Star Wars before that?
Yeah, there's no point in my life that didn't have Star Wars because I was born during the time like the first 3 were coming out, and it was just like woven into the fabric of my childhood. I mean, I was not old enough to see the first movies in the theater, but at some point I got to see them. And then I remember playing like Ewok Adventures in the backyard, and of course wanted to be Princess Leia and all of that. So it was just always sort of a given that Star Wars was there and that it was something that kept like drawing me back. And as I got older, I kept up with the prequels and then the sequels, but did not know the depth and breadth of the universe that I have now been exposed to. Prior to doing The Mandalorian, I hadn't seen Clone Wars, I hadn't seen Rebels, and I am just constantly made aware of how much I still don't know because it's incredible to me. And it makes sense. The original movies came out over 40 years ago, but the inspiration that has continued is incredible to me. And the books that have been written and the animated shows and all the little offshoots are just, it's thrilling. And now, one of my friends was joking, like it's just too bad that Disney's not really taking advantage of the Star Wars acquisition. They're just not doing anything with it.
Hey, listen, I'm ready for you to get your own show called just The Armor. I'm ready for that one.
When they came out with like 10 different spinoffs, I was like, wait a minute, I'm a little hurt. So to go around.
Yeah. So it's really cool that you say that, is because like what I've noticed too is with a lot of fans of The Mandalorian have your same story in terms of like when they're watching The Mandalorian, it's kind of opened their eyes to a whole world of Star Wars that maybe they haven't engaged with yet. And now they're starting to engage with it because of the show. So I thought that was really, really cool. But we want to kind of ask you too, what was your process for choosing the best way to bring the armorer to life?
I love answering that question because it's one of the most interesting character creations that I feel like I've had, because it started with me knowing next to nothing about what I was getting into. Like even the audition itself, I knew maybe had something to do with Star Wars, but prior to that, there'd been no live action Star Wars TV shows. So I didn't know. And of course on streaming, it's hard to know immediately, like if something is a big deal or not, which I was so happy for because it was such a boring audition just in terms of like the stakes of it. And I'm so grateful for that because I probably would have been completely nervous. But I knew that this character might show up in one or more episodes that she would be masked the whole time. They made sure I knew that because I guess some people, might not want to, they want to show their beautiful face. I had no problem with that. It was kind of a relief. And the only information I was given is that she was the Zen leader of a clan of people who were in hiding. And that was it. And in the course of the audition, which was also so low key, it was just me and a casting associate in a room with the camera. Like there was nobody involved with the production at any point. I just had one audition. He suggested, he gave me some little adjustments and gave me a little more very vague information that would help with the scene. And then asked me to do it with a British dialect because they'd been seeing a lot of Brits. So just in case. And so that's how that happened. And I think that sort of stuck just because I think that John liked that it kind of set her apart from everybody else. And so he encouraged me to keep some semblance of that. But, I didn't get a script or anything. Like I found out I got it and I was still, and at that point I knew it was something Star Wars, but still knew so little that I was like, okay, maybe this is cool. and it wasn't until I got to my first costume fitting that I realized, oh, wow, okay, this is going to be really spectacular because I went to Legacy Effects, this studio out in the Valley in Los Angeles. And they started like taking all these measurements and they did this like plaster of Paris cast of my torso, but I hadn't seen anything. So I didn't know what anything was going to look like. And then they realized I hadn't seen anything because they were talking to me about all this stuff and they were like, oh, you don't know anything, do you? And I said, no, I know nothing. So they showed me some sketches and it just took my breath away. And then as I went back for subsequent fittings and saw this costume come together, that just did so much for me to understand kind of the epic size of this character. And then a few days before we started shooting, I finally got to talk with John and with Dave, and they really encouraged me to look back at some of the things that George Lucas had originally used for inspiration, like Kurosawa films and just that for that level of kind of formality and that regalness, and that helped a lot. But then it was really just like, I was fortunate that I was in the first episodes that we were shooting because it shot all out of order, but we did 1 and 3 at the same time. So Dave Filoni and Deborah Chow were directing those, and we kind of just like learned on our feet how these masked and armored characters needed to communicate on camera. And it was a lot of trial and error and a lot of experimenting. And I had done some mask work for theater before, but that's very different because, when you're on camera, the audience isn't seeing your entire body the whole time. Sometimes they're not seeing you at all. Sometimes they're just seeing your mask. And so it was really interesting to see what translated and what didn't. And it was kind of cool to play a character who doesn't reveal much because it meant I didn't really have to worry as much about being perfectly clear in all of my communication. Yeah. And that was just really fun. And then I guess the final piece of it was that I didn't truly understand what an integral part she was of his journey until I watched it, because I didn't really know anything about the episodes I wasn't in. I had the scripts for the episodes I did, but everything was just so under wraps. I was like, I'm only in 3 episodes. I'm only in a few scenes. It seems like I'm not that big a deal. And so then at the end to like see, Jenna, what?
Yep.
It was pretty exciting.
Yeah,
it is really
I think
exciting.
You ended up being a little bit big of a deal. So
yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's really interesting. Just kind of hearing about, the process of coming up with how the character behaves and sounds and everything. What differences like working on Star Wars have you noticed as opposed to like working on other stuff? Like, like you were talking about kind of a lot of the experimentation and stuff like that. Is there anything unique about working on a Star Wars production?
I don't think that that's unique to Star Wars. I think that it's unique to Jon Favreau and the way that he assembled this team. Because one of the things that struck me from the start was how collaborative and generous everybody was. And I noticed, just in the episodes I worked on, he had chosen directors who were very unique in their styles. But he was so great he and Dave both were so great at just unifying everybody, making sure everybody was telling the same story and still encouraging everyone to draw on those unique talents. That I think people were really able to shine in a way that served the story in the best possible way. And it was just such a collaborative, generous environment. Everyone, and you could kind of feel like this undercurrent. This was, I think, unique to Star Wars, this little undercurrent with everybody of like, oh my gosh, we're getting to play Star Wars every day. It's like a dream come true for everyone. But given what I know now, just about like how much money was put into it and continues to be put into it, and how kind of like how big a deal it is, it stands out even more to me that it was just so collaborative, and that everyone is so, there wasn't a lot of ego. Everyone was very giving and really concerned about just doing the best work they could to tell this story. And that was a beautiful thing. And I think that, I've been on other projects that are like that, but I think that the heart of Star Wars was really served in that way. And so that was a real pleasure to get to see.
Absolutely. There is a specialness to Star Wars. I think that, when people approach it, you just kind of, like you said, you kind of feel it. Is there anything that, like, just when you were on set, what was one of your most memorable moments or a memorable story from your time on set with The Mandalorian?
Oh boy. Well, the first thing that comes to mind wasn't when I was actually on set, but it was when I was at the studio, and I, like I was saying, I knew so little about, if I wasn't working in a scene with somebody, I didn't know they were in it. So as like press releases came out, I was like, oh, I had no idea I was in a show with like Nick Nolte. And but I remember walking down the hall of all of our dressing rooms one day, and I saw Giancarlo Esposito's name. Ooh. And I freaked out because I'm just such a huge fan of his, as so many people, because of Breaking Bad and the other incredible work that he's done. And I never worked with him, but like, I remember that day when I saw his name and I was so excited that he was involved with it. But for me, I had a different experience from a lot of people, because I got to have a set that was all tangible for the most part. There were some of the special effects, like in the forging sequences, that they put in afterwards, but I never worked with the green screen. I never had to really like make believe much, except for like IG-11 and some of that stuff. But even then, there was a person standing there, and then they did all the animation on top of it. But I really appreciated the care that was put into all of the little details in the armorer's forge. And my tools were exquisite, and the level of craftsmanship and the care that was put into that meant a lot. And there was a blacksmithing consultant that was there on the days that I was doing those forging sequences, which was great because, it's just when you have somebody who knows what they're doing, who's looking on to make sure you look like you know what you're doing, it just adds another level of confidence that I really appreciated, and that they cared enough about it to take the time to do that meant a lot. But I think, it sort of felt like each day was this, like I was opening more Christmas presents as I got to see like all the cool things that I got to play with. I definitely would like to have some of the armorer's toys.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
We
cool. Would also like to have those. Just we missed you a lot in season 2.
So much.
Yeah, we are of course hoping for the return of the armorer in season 3. Got our fingers crossed for that. But just as a fan, what were your thoughts on season 2? Have you seen it?
Oh yeah. It blew my mind because I knew nothing about what was going to happen. In the first few episodes, I was like, okay, this is interesting. This is cool. But it sort of felt like it got off to a little bit of a slow start. which I now looking back, I'm like, well, that was probably entirely intentional. But to see, oh my gosh, I was so excited to get to see Bo-Katan. And oh, sorry, I just had a pop-up that came up on my screen.
You're
Yeah,
good.
all good, all good.
Oh, what's happening? Oh, wait,
You're
there you
good.
are. Okay. To see Bo-Katan, to see Ahsoka, I mean, it was amazing to me that because I feel like there is this what must be a very challenging task of having this story that you want to tell, knowing that there's a lot of expectations from fans and characters that they would like to meet, and needing to sort of marry the two of what are your individual ideas for the story, and then what can you also do that kind of answers people's pleas, I guess. And I just thought that I feel like my awe for Jon Favreau just grows constantly because it just, knowing that Boba Fett would be on there was like, okay, that'll probably be pretty cool. But then like that character exceeded anything I expected and was so much more interesting than what I even anticipated.
Yeah.
And I love that the show is not afraid to, I think there's this great patience with the storytelling. I mean, as we've seen, because of like when Fennec got what we thought she got killed in season
Right.
1, we knew absolutely nothing. And then all of a sudden she comes back halfway through season 2, like to be patient enough to use the storytelling that way. And to be specific enough to reveal all these complex details about these characters. I feel like season 2 was even better than season 1. And I'm very excited to see what's going to happen with season 3.
So are we. Like, to me, I think the question that pops into my mind is, do you think the armor would get along with Bo-Katan? Like, do you believe there might be some conflict between those two characters just in their viewpoints on Mandalore and Mandalorians?
I'm laughing because a number of people have speculated things about that I've seen online. And Emily, who has such respect for Katie Sackhoff and who loves that character, I'm like, of course we could get along. We'd be great. But also, Emily did not know until this season that the Armorer is part of this cult.
Right.
So I honestly don't know. I like to think of a world where Mandalorians from different backgrounds can, come together in a common goal. But because there's obviously so much more to the galaxy than I really know, I don't know. I mean, I could also see how there might be some conflict there around the Darksaber, and I don't know how that's going to play out now that he has the Darksaber, but he doesn't really want to fight over it, but he can't just give it away. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm excited to see it. And of course, we hope that the armor shows back up in season 3 because you were one of our favorite characters in the entire show. So we did really miss you in season 2.
For sure. The armor just goes such a long way of bringing mystery and intrigue into the Mandalorian lore. It was a perfect addition. So, so pointed question. It's kind of an inside joke amongst our listeners and us and everything. Do you think Mandalorians have to be human? So there's a lot. So do you think we generally see humans as Mandalorians, but do you think it has to be that way?
I don't think so. Because I think, I mean, given the fact that like we take in, you don't have to be born into being a Mandalorian.
Right.
So I feel like that sort of opens it up, not just to foundlings who are humans, but I don't know. What do you guys think?
What Mac is trying to ask is basically, is there anything to the horns on the armor's helmet?
Oh, see, I didn't even know you were. I honestly don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right.
Cool.
That's not a no, though, everyone.
It's not. It's Emily doesn't know enough.
I don't know. Right. Yeah, right.
Cool. Yeah, I have a personal theory that the armorer might be a Zabrak, which is like Darth Maul's species. That's why she's got the.
I have heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we'll see.
Maybe we'll find out.
Yeah. Well, hey, our time is coming short. We'd really appreciate you talking with us. This has been amazing. But first, we really want to know, other than hopefully future Mandalorian appearances, what else do you have going on? Like, what else can people find you in, or where can they follow you online? Just anything you're doing.
Thanks for
anything
asking. Yeah. Well, the thing that I've been shooting most recently is so completely different from The Mandalorian because I've been working on SEAL Team. It's a show on CBS, which I was on last season and back again this season. So that's the most current thing. But I'm on Instagram. I'm sort of on Twitter. I forget about Twitter a lot, but I do try to respond to people, and I love when people like tag me in pictures of their cosplay or in their fan art or anything. So please feel free to do that. And my handle on Instagram and on Twitter is Biggie Swalls, which is BIGESWALLZ. So if people want to look for me there, I will. I'm not always the best at keeping up with the social media, but I try because I'm so inspired by what people create. And I actually, thanks to a fan who builds stuff for cosplay, I have an armorer helmet.
Nice.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's not in the city where I currently am, but I haven't started traveling with it yet, although many people have suggested that I just use it as my mask on the airplane.
There you go.
That would be cool.
Yeah,
That would be cool.
Can avoid the ear fatigue that way, probably.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Emily, thank you so much for your time today. This has been just
pleasure.
absolutely a delight.
It's
Highlight
great
of my
talking,
year.
guys.
All right. Well, we will hopefully see you in The Mandalorian in the future. But until then, I'll tell you and then all the listeners, keep the watch.
Right on.